Well, I know you wanted to talk about Joseph Robinette Biden. You brought it to my attention that his middle name was Robinette. How embarrassing is it for your middle name to be Robinette?
Oh my God. Mm. Wow. I wonder what Hunter's middle name is. Woo. Yeah, I want to take a minute, and I want to take this back to what you said about about our analysis needing to be more nuanced, and that is these wars in Ukraine and now in Palestine have the potential to push this world towards a nuclear holocaust. And as I consider the United States President Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. to be the most dangerous politician on the planet at this moment. There's no doubt in my mind, had he been president in 1962 during the Cuban Missile Crisis, a lot of us would not be here, because that's how asinine this guy is. Of course, he's just being manipulated by the military-industrial complex and the American oligarchs, who we talk about the Russian oligarchs. We never talk about them. So anyway, I'm just going to take a minute and read this paper that I wrote this week. I'll go through it, and then you can comment, Brother Amos. On October 20th, President Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. delivered some remarks titled "The United States Response to Hamas's Terrorist Attacks Against Israel and Russia's Ongoing Brutal War Against Ukraine," which made me think of two things. For one, I'm glad the war hawk Biden wasn't president during the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, when the world stood on the brink of nuclear war. Biden, more than any other politician, in my opinion, is pushing our world closer to nuclear war. Secondly, it reminded me of comments President Dwight D. Eisenhower made during his January 17, 1961 farewell address. Ike made four important points. Number one, our military today bears little relation to that known by any of my predecessors in peacetime. Okay, so Eisenhower was the commander of the Allied forces during World War II. He and his assistants planned the June 6, 1944 D-Day invasion. He was a military man, straight up and down. So he's warning. This is a military man warning about the military, if you think about it in that context, not just the president. Number two, this conjunction of an immense military establishment and large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. Number three, in the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. Now, initially, it has come to my attention, I had no awareness of this, that he initially called it the military-industrial congressional complex, because Congress has the vote to fund this industrial complex. But he took congressional out because he still was hoping to get a couple of bills passed through Congress, so he didn't want to irritate them. But I think that congressional is applicable, when we are using this, in some instances. And number four, we must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or our democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that the security and liberty may prosper together. So all of this is coming from a guy that was a military man. Needless to say, Ike's warning has been totally ignored. The military-industrial complex now rules the roost. During his remarks last week, Biden said, "Tomorrow, I'm going to send Congress an urgent budget request to fund America's national security needs to support our critical partners, including Israel and Ukraine. It's a smart investment that's going to pay dividends for American security for generations. Help us keep American troops out of harm's way. Help us build a world that is safer, more peaceful, and more prosperous for our children and grandchildren. That statement is just dripping with hypocrisy and insanity. I mean, I could just make a whole post just on that statement alone, but you know, I'm gonna keep moving here. Excuse me, I thought America's national security needs were covered when Biden signed the $857.9 billion fiscal year 2023 National Defense Authorization Act in December of 2022. That bill allocated $816.7 billion to the Department of Defense to keep us safe. So, you know, he's saying he's requesting additional funds, he said, because of America's national security needs, but really not only to support our critical partners, but to put money into the industrial complex. And I'll get to that in just a minute. But so what do you need more money for when the Congress already has given you the largest NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, in history, $857.9 billion. Okay, this got in December, right? Have they blown through that, right? In 9+ months or almost 10 months, possibly, probably. As promised, Biden proceeded the next day to ask the U.S. Congress for $105 billion additional national security funding. They're calling this national security as if somehow the national security of the United States is threatened by a war, the war that's taking place in Ukraine, which actually started in 2014, which the Obama administration, Victoria Nuland, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., and others were heavily involved in, bringing the original war about when they decided to walk away. Once again, here's a treaty they signed, the Minsk I and Minsk II Accords. They had no intention of abiding by it, which Angela Merkel has now admitted. But you know, that's another story also. Okay, so the president is requesting $61.4 billion for Ukraine, $14.3 billion for Israel, $14 billion for border security to keep the southwest border secure and stop the flow of fentanyl. That's what they're saying. What a joke that is. And the remainder will go to Taiwan and others. Now, Israel already gets somewhere between 3.8 and 3.9 billion. Bush signed a memorandum of agreement that gave George W. Bush, that gave Israel $3 billion a year, a $3 billion a year welfare check. Obama decided that wasn't enough, so he upped it by $800 million to bring it to 3.8 billion, and I think Trump might have upped it from that to 3.9. I have to double check on that, but I'm pretty sure he upped it to a certain extent. Okay, per Biden, over $50 billion will go directly to U.S. defense contractors. After all, they have to produce and replace the weapons that the U.S. is sending to Ukraine and Israel. These contractors are all for the racket of war, where profits are reckoned in dollars and the losses in lives. A UN press release quoted Lockheed Martin chief executive James Taichlet, Taiclet, saying there is no point, check this out now, there's no point in restraining Israel from any military actions. There are conflicts which need to be resolved with arms, and we're prepared to provide these arms, these weapons. So this is coming directly from Lockheed Martin, one of the largest, if not the largest, defense contractor. They're saying, yeah, turn Israel loose, let them kill, because that puts more money in our pockets. You know, so that quote came from Lieutenant General, U.S. Marine Corps Lieutenant General Smedley Butler, who was involved in the U.S. invasion of Haiti in 1915 and others. You know, he came to his senses and said war was a racket. Profits are reckoned in dollars and the losses in lives. Okay. Per Information Clearinghouse, the United States has spent an estimated $8.9 trillion on wars since September 11, 2001. Think about that. $8.9 trillion on wars since September 11, 2001. What could that 8.9 trillion have done in this country, where you have people with mental health issues in Maine of all places, killing somewhere between 18 and 22 people and wounding 50 to 60 others, and they had this guy in. He went in for mental health, and they let him go. It's crazy. It's insane. What's another 105 billion when the U.S. national debt is 36.6 trillion, rising by the millisecond? The 33.6 trillion debt means that each U.S. citizen owes about $100,250 to pay it off. That's a fantasy for sure. However, think about the 105 billion in real terms. Per the USA Today, childcare has long been unaffordable and inaccessible for many Americans, costing parents over $10,000 a year on average, while more than half the population lives in childcare deserts with insufficient supply. Many of the families needing childcare were helped by the $24 billion Child Care Stabilization Program passed through the American Rescue Plan in 2021. That program ended on September 30th due to no additional funding. No additional funding for child care. Okay, just think about that. The program had allocated funding to more than 220,000 child care programs and covered as many as 9.6 million children, according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. According to a report from the Century Foundation, more than 70,000 child care programs, 1/3 of those supported by the American Rescue Plan stabilizing funding, will likely close, and approximately 3.2 million children could lose their child care spots. So they can't fund child care. They can't fund child care. The loss in tax and business revenue will likely cost states $10.6 billion in economic activity per year. In addition, we project that millions of parents will be impacted, with many leaving the workforce and reducing their hours, costing families $9 billion each year in lost earnings. The child care workforce, which has been one of the slowest sectors to recover from the pandemic, will likely lose another 232,000 jobs. See, this is where people just go to the polls and vote. They don't even have no idea what their representatives are voting for. And they're voting to take money right out of your pocket. They're robbing you worse than Jesse James, Frank James, John Dillinger, and anybody else could rob you. Babyface Nelson, all of them put together. They couldn't rob you the way the government robs the American public. Okay.
I was telling somebody the other day that war is money laundering. So what they do is they put together these big packages to go to Congress to ask for ways to launder your money, your tax money, out of the country, offshore, and they line their pockets. This is why all these politicians love being involved in politics, because it's a money racketeering scandal. Absolutely. And earlier you said Joe Biden is a lame duck president. That's pretty much, well, not lame duck, but he's controlled by the oligarchs. Mm-hmm. Joe Biden, it was recently reported that he had at least 40 informants, FBI informants, inside of his family and inside of his cabinet. Wow. So they have so much dirt on Biden and his family and the crimes that he's done that he's pretty much on a leash, and they're controlling everything that he does. The Zionists are pretty much controlling every move that he makes. No doubt about it. Let me finish with these last couple of comments from this, because I kept editorializing when I was reading this. So
This is the final quote from the Century Foundation. Our findings underscore the urgent need for immediate funding and long-term comprehensive solutions at the federal level that offer safe, nurturing, and affordable child care options to every family. Okay, now continuing with my thoughts. In the context of the U.S. government spending, for a paltry $24 billion, this is in the context of all these trillions, okay? They could keep 3.2 million children in child care, save 232,000 jobs, and save families $9 billion a year. For $24 billion, they could do that. They could do that. While they can't bring themselves to help 3.2 million American children, a majority of the U.S. Congress supports additional funding for the Ukraine war, which has already been allocated $113 billion. And Israel, as we know, they're going to get whatever they want. It doesn't. They can ask for Fort Knox and get it. Okay. Now, I said there's a possibility that a hardcore group of House Republicans may block the Ukraine funding if they can ever elect a House Speaker. They did elect the House Speaker this week, Johnson from Louisiana. I don't know where he stands on these issues, but the same group of Republicans who oppose the additional funding for Ukraine also oppose the needed child care funding. The real question is, why does the American body politic tolerate these misplaced priorities? That's the real question. But it goes back to something Eisenhower said when he talked about, that you needed a knowledgeable electorate in order to understand what was going on. We just the American body politic is just a bunch of gullible sheep being led to slaughter. Mm-hmm. And so, I just wanted to point that out in terms of, what's coming down the pipe. Now that they do have a speaker in place, I'm sure they'll start operating on these. They have to reach an agreement by sometime in November to continue funding the government, because they got to keep adding to this debt, this $33.6 trillion debt, right? They got to keep printing money. Really, the American empire is actually walking on eggshells, and it's just a matter of time before the whole thing just, and it could be sudden, and everybody's just caught totally off guard. It just could be absolutely sudden, and it will be more devastating, I think, than the stock market crash in 1929. For one, just given the volatility in the country in general. But I just wanted to point that out, because I know a lot of black people are going to be scared to death of Trump if he becomes the Republican nominee, and they're going to run straight into a nuclear war in the hands of this guy that's cognitively challenged. He's just a toy soldier. They wind him up and send him out, and once he gets through unwinding, he's lost. He don't know where to go. They got to pull him back off the stage. But that's what the choices are down to, because no one's bold enough or courageous enough to break the mold and find alternatives. Go ahead, brother.
Well, yeah, it's one of those situations where, because of this shadow government, this is an ongoing cycle, and we get caught up in a lot of the lower level battles between politicians, parties, but we miss the people who actually hold powerful positions within these presidents' cabinets or different organizations like the FBI, like the CIA, who play massive roles in continuing this cycle of war, money laundering, stealing taxpayers' money, and funding themselves and these different contracting companies.
Mm. Yes,
So
sir.
you made a lot of valid points. And you would think that they would separate a fund request for Ukraine, Israel, which, I mean, I don't think any of it should be funded, but you would think that they would at least separate that out instead of trying to play on people's emotions around Israel to then bundle all of this other money to go out to various aspects. One key point that you did make in Biden's speech about the funding, the key word was this is an investment. So he's letting you know, from the top that we spend this money as an investment. That's why they don't have any more funding for childcare, because they don't consider that an investment.
It's not a smart investment.
They would rather invest in AI than to invest in childcare.
Right. Yeah. It's a smart investment. It's going to pay dividends for American security for generations. I mean, they don't even learn from the recent history of, how much you are killing all of these innocent people. Okay. I mean, even if somebody said, well, they have a legitimate grounds to retaliate, right? Which you took somebody else's land, and now, they've been oppressed, exploited, blockaded, and everything else. But you're just carrying out absolutely just random genocide with immunity and impunity. And that's one reason why, the Zionist state continues to do this. But his statement is so ridiculous, because it's only a smart investment from the people who profit from it.
Mm-hmm.
But long term, it's going to have a net negative for the average American citizen. People just don't seem to be able to make the connection. Well, it's just those people who need childcare. Well, yeah, it's them today. Okay. All right. It's them today. He said it helps us keep American troops out of harm's way. Didn't Lord Austin just move 2 aircraft carriers, one into the Mediterranean and one into the Persian Gulf? Within drone range. You keeping them safe? I mean, American bases in Syria and Iraq have come under attack, right? Because everybody is going to, whether they have any kind of alignment with the Palestinians or not, they see this as an opportunity to attack the United States, right? So this is where the United States is in this late stage of the American empire, scraping the bottom of the cesspool for leaders. And that's basically what's happening. And this is what you get. And people can't see any alternatives.